Welcome to Ocho Uncensored. I hope you guys are having a phenomenal week and have been, doing well. So, first and foremost, though I don't have a beard anymore, so my struggle is real, I'm still working with the beard struggle. And that link will be in the description of this video. Head on over there. Use the promo code, get a discount, and get some badass products that will help your beard grow and become whatever it is that you want it to become. I'm also working with Fenix Fit. Same thing. Head on over there, use the promo code, you'll get a discount. Their products are amazing. My wife just started their multivitamin, the women's multivitamin. She's loving it. So here's my beautiful wife. And here is the repair. It's called Repair from Fenix Fit, and this is what she just started. And you like it, right?
I do. It gives me energy. I feel like everything I need. I need extra D. I need B12. I just feel like zinc has all that in there. So just pop it in. You'll feel it about 20 minutes later. Energy kicks in. There you go.
I'm gonna go, ladies. All right, ladies, you've heard it for yourself from a fellow femalian. All right. I've also linked up with the Gold Supply. The Gold Supply sends me jewelry every week, and I basically just review it, right? So this week I got this silver rope chain, okay, with this silver cross with cubic zirconium, of course, in it. It's not real diamonds or anything like that, right? It's a good product though, right? Especially the chain, guys. The chain is so legit. It's super heavy, and feels real sturdy. Of course, I can't wear it because of my neck brace, but my wife wore it. If you head over there, I'm leaving a review on the actual Gold Supply website. And there will be a picture of my wife wearing this. And yeah, so it looks amazing. It feels sturdy, feels strong, and is definitely worth your money. So head over there and do some shopping, all right? I just wanted to chop it up with you guys, and really discuss just life, man, and how crazy things are right now between the COVID and schools not knowing if they're gonna open or reopen or do partial openings where, you know, the kids are on the computer 3 days and is in the classroom 2 days. You know, all of it's just insane. On top of that, we have all this racial stuff going on, and the statues being taken down, and streets being renamed, all kinds of stuff. We've seen, and I've done videos on this of the police assaulting and murdering innocent young black individuals at an alarming rate. And doing it on camera as if it's okay. So there's a lot going on, and there's a lot of unrest. Both sides of the coin are upset. There's people saying that taking down the statues and stuff is destroying America's heritage and history. Others are like, hey, that history is negative, that history is oppressive, and it represents a very hard time for a large population of the black community, right? So, which is our community. And their history is what? American history. And that's something I think that everyone's forgetting, okay? But we have all of this going on. Of course, the media outlets and the news outlets are gonna spin stuff to bring people against each other, not for each other, right? And it takes Americans to come together to solve this. No one entity is going to be able to bring an end to this madness and this unrest. For example, it took generations upon generations of people telling their sons and their daughters that black people were bad or black people were unworthy. Vice versa, it took generations upon generations for black people to tell their kids and their daughters, hey, white people are bad, white people will hurt you, this, that, and the third. Can't trust them. Now we're here. We're in 2020. Generation upon generation upon generation. And slowly, right, we're starting to see that we're not that different. And that together we are much stronger. But it's going to take some time for people to figure all of this out, okay? The Confederate flag, you know, being taken out of NASCAR and taken down out of military installations. I guess some people are not going to agree with what I'm about to say, but I'll say this. If we talk about equality, if you're going to have all these statues of Confederate leaders, then we need to have a shit ton more statues of African American leaders, right? And the people that throughout history led them and stood as their staples and their pillars of their communities. You know, we need to have schools named after them. Not just one black museum in DC, you know what I mean? This needs to be something that would be much larger, which you're not going to see that. My other point is this. Why are, as a country, one, if you're an American, you're not a Confederate, right? You didn't live back then. Yeah, it's your history, but shit, there's a lot of history, okay? And we have to understand that that's exactly what it is. It's history's back then. And that history is quite negative for a lot of people. I'm not saying that every person that was in the Confederate States or flew a Confederate flag was a racist or hated, you know, other races, but I will say it is definitely attached to racism. It is definitely attached to the oppression of minorities. So you can't deny that that's a truth for them. Why, as an American population, do we want to highlight the worst mistakes that we've made? Why do we want to have these statues of these men who literally oppressed and enslaved other human beings just because they could? Man, it's 2020. We're a different nation. We're in a different direction, and I don't think that if you talk to the average person and the majority of the population, they don't want drama. They want peace. They want to be able to interact with people of all races and all walks of life without a hitch, without an issue. And that's the direction I believe that this country and this nation is trying to move towards. And we have a small pocket of people that just don't want to let that happen. And it's sad, but it's a reality. But I'm telling you that if we come together and if we have the conversation, and you know, look, that's where it starts. It starts at the conversation. We can sit here and talk about all the issues, but how do we solve it? How do we get past where we are right now? Well, first, it's a conversation. We have to be willing to talk about the tough stuff. We have to be willing to express ourselves and how we really feel about what's going on, and then hear the other person. And you can't hear the other person if while they're talking, you're thinking about what you're gonna tell them. That's bullshit. That means you didn't hear shit that they just said, right? That's the first step. We got to hear each other. We have to hear each other. Try to understand where that other person is coming from. Try to understand those feelings, when we talk about the unrest, I think a lot of times it gets misconstrued, especially by the media. Did you know that the black community, when arrested, will serve 20% more time in prison than white people for the same crime? See, these are the things that they're upset about. These are the things that we're not talking about, though. They're not, I think that everyone understands and can compartmentalize the fact that there are going to be people that are going to be racist in this world. And are not going to like another person because of whatever the fucking reason is that matters very little to the average person, right? But for whatever reason, these small pockets of people can't get over it, right? And they're going to hate somebody because of the color of their skin or because of the religion that they, proclaim or they follow. These are things that are going to happen, right? But what pisses people off is when they get pulled over and they're doing nothing wrong and they get completely harassed, pulled out of their car searched, all the while for a bullshit excuse or reason. All because they're black or all because they're Mexican. This is the bullshit that they deal with on a consistent basis. Afraid to get arrested because the charges, while the white individual might walk or get a slap on the wrist, the minority individual gets a year, 2 years, 5 years, 7 years of their life taken away without a blink of the eye. And I promise you there is no remorse from a judge. So they get sent up the river and lose a massive amount of their life, while a white individual for the same damn crime will get nothing compared to them, really. And it's sad. Why is it that the black community is the only community that has to argue why they got murdered? Defend why they got murdered, should I say. A white kid dies, the whole world's up in arms and they're upset and justice has to be had. A young black kid gets murdered. It's gang violence. It's this, it's that. It's the third. Oh, he was a criminal. He was that. Whoa, hold the fuck on. Could have just been a little kid walking down the street, right? But our minds don't want to think like that because we've been programmed a certain way. And that programming needs to be challenged. And honestly, we need to be reprogrammed with the right way of viewing and interacting with other people. So I talk about the many reasons why the black community wants change and why they're so upset. Between 1980 and 2015, the number of incarcerated individuals rose from 500,000 to roughly 2.2 million. Now, 32% of the U.S. population is represented by African Americans and Hispanics. However, 56% of the population in prison is African Americans and Hispanics. Though they make up 32% of the national population, they make up 56% of the prison population. In 2014, African Americans constituted for 2.3 million, or 34% of the 6.8 million individuals incarcerated. And I can talk a lot about my feelings towards the Justice Department, but 56% of the population, yet they're only 32% of the national population. Doesn't that seem a little rigged, a little crazy? While you might live in a neighborhood or an environment or an area that is low crime and has very little issues, and maybe even the people of color around you are successful. And that's awesome. But there are areas and communities that have been systematically designed to fail. Systematically designed to set people in poverty and in drugs and send them on a road to basically jail and destruction. Everybody, when we talk about, African Americans dying, even though like this last one with George Floyd, my God, how can you even argue this thing? Why is there an argument? Why do we feel like we need to argue other than the fact that this man should have never been a cop in the first damn place? That's what we should be arguing. Instead, we use it or some people are using it to argue, well, they're animals. They're animals now? How racist could you fucking be? Oh, well, they kill each other. The black crime rate is and murder rate is outrageous. Well, let's go to the poverty part of this and let's figure out why the crime rate and the murder rate is the way it is. Again, you might not live in an area that has these issues. So it's far from your mind, and it seems unrealistic for it to be an issue or an excuse for one not to succeed. But I promise you, if you are living in this environment, you might have a different perception of what's feasible and what's not. I grew up fairly hard. Now, I told a lot of you guys about how my mom was strung out on crack. She was out there, man. And my home became a drug house. My home was raided when I was 14 years old. I have been around drugs, violence, gangbanging, prostitution since I was a little kid, but I'm white. And I do believe that communities nowadays, and it's more about poverty and what you don't have rather than the skin color, which was the case many years ago. However, these communities are still majority African American or Spanish. I promise you, if you drop a baby, young African American baby that was born from, let's say, South Central LA, and you put him in a mansion in Georgia, okay, around super attentive parents that give him the best of everything, and then you take their kid the same age and drop him off at South Central with parents who don't care and are strung out on drugs, and I guarantee you, you're gonna have two different products because the environment they live in, right, is going to produce them. So let's hit these facts real quick because I know I'm just talking your ear off. It's just a thing that I relate to because of how I grew up. My mom, I grew up eating crackers and mixing different condiments together to try to get a different taste for that because that's all we really had. We still, whatever, to get things that we, extra things that we liked. You know what I mean? But that was just the life that I was in, and you only know what's around you and what you're being taught and what you see. Let me pause on that because I've said enough about that. When we talk about communities, low-income communities that have the drugs and the violence, okay? For example, everybody talks about Chicago. The violence in Chicago, well, it's not all of Chicago, guys, okay? I have a really good friend who's from Chicago, and I asked him about the violence in Chicago, and he said, well, really, it's it's really isolated to the south side of Chicago. I'm not saying that there aren't crimes throughout Chicago and violence throughout Chicago, but the bulk of this violence, and especially the gang and the criminal element that is creating violence, is happening on the south side. The south side is very low income, right? The federal, state, and local policies have fortified housing discrimination. Now, this is a report I'm reading, and I'll put the links in the description so that way you guys can see what I'm seeing. And maybe, you'll have something else to add to this. I don't know. I'm just going off of the information I'm getting because I want my opinions to be fact-based, not based off emotion, which changes from when to when, right? For decades, governments and private citizens have employed exclusionary tactics to prevent African Americans and other people of color from building wealth through home ownership and affordable housing. Whether through formal policy decisions or a persistent failure to enact and enforce civil rights laws, government action and inaction continues to undermine prosperity in communities of color. You can't tell me that's not happening today. How many times do you go into low-income communities and you're like, man, why are certain laws and certain things not happening in these areas? Because it's not being enforced or it's not being enacted. When you really look into this, you see this group of people stuck in a trap, completely by design. And it's worked year after year, generation after generation. As noted in a recent Center for American Progress report, racial disparities in home appreciation, the federal government established several programs in the 20th century that were designed to promote home ownership and provide a pathway to the middle class. However, these programs largely benefited white households while excluding black families. Again, here we go. Let's give it to the white side, but we're going to exclude the black families. And this is how we've gotten to where we are. And when you live in these communities and there are no outlets, there are no means to make money and to be prosperous, you turn to whatever's around you to do so. When you have no parents, you turn to whoever will be a parent to you. See, this is all what's happening, and we don't want to talk about the root of the problem. We don't want to talk about how to truly fix this, right? Because if we did, we would be talking about this right now. Because this is one of the biggest issues, the easiest things to fix. Getting people to do their job, oh, you could fix that if you gave a shit. My point is this. Right now, this nation doesn't need more division. It needs us rallying together, trying to understand each other to the best of our abilities. And you know what? The things that we don't understand or the things that are different, let them go. That is what makes this world so fucking amazing. It's the little things that are so different about the other person, the other guy, okay? No one needs to be exactly like fucking you. In the end, we can only change what's around us, right? Our sphere of influence. I can't change what's happening in Washington, D.C. or with lawmakers or any big legislation, right? I'm just some bald-headed white dude, sitting here talking randomly on YouTube. And you are whoever the fuck you are. But there is a circle around us that we do have some type of influence in. And that's where we make our impact. We make our impact on daily interactions. Doing the right thing, being the right way towards people, not judging a book by its cover, rather reading a few pages before you just say, hey, this is what it is. But I know there's this progresses. And as we lean on each other and as we move forward together, we can get through this time. We can look back, teach our kids on how to be better, how to be stronger as a population, okay? And I truly believe that this moment in history is super, super important for the direction of the next few centuries. So let's get it right, America. I'll holla at you.